Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my messy basement for a no nonsense review of the YT Izzo. And I got this bike. I've been riding it for a few months now. Bought it just before the BT Epic, which is a 52.5 mile race here in Missouri. And I really did not want to do the Epic on my Specialized Enduro, even with carbon wheels and cross country tires again. And I got this bike used, got a pretty good deal on it from a guy in St. Louis. And just want to go through some of the changes I've made and what I really think. First of all, this is a large, and I am exactly 5'8.5" barefoot. So we'll say, solid 5'9" shoes. I don't have particularly long legs or arms. Might slightly be on the shorter arm side of things, but I'm pretty proportional, just average dude. And immediately I knew just from test riding it that I was going to have to do something about the top tube length because ideally I would be on a medium on this bike. With the stock 60 millimeter stem that comes on this bike, this is not the stock stem. This is a Pro Taper 40 millimeter stem that I found online for like super cheap. I guess Pro Taper's still just not moving a lot of parts in the mountain bike world, so they had this thing on sale for like 25 or 30 bucks. It was really cheap, and it's a beefy looking stem, but the stock 60 mil stem, there was no way I was going to be able to run this bike. 50 mil stem I probably could get away with, but even that felt pretty stretched out. Now, you might be saying, well, Clint, you could totally, you've got like you could slam that seat up another inch. Well, here's the problem with that, folks. I know that super steep, and I talked about this on this channel before. I know super steep seat tube angles is like all the rage these days, but my body does not like it. I've never measured my femur, whatever. If I get too far forward over those pedals, my knees don't like it. I really have to raise the seat up high, and my body just does not seem to enjoy that. I start to get a little bit of knee pain. So I basically have the saddle where it needs to be, and used the shorter stem to adjust. Now, I personally think that shorter stem, especially on a short travel bike like this, and this might sound counterintuitive, I think it comes with a lot of advantages moving your hands and where your body weight is interacting with the bike farther behind the axle. I think it might even be more important with the head tube angles not as slack as an enduro bike. You can run a longer split dim on an enduro bike, but that slacker head tube angle is still going to push that axle farther out in front of you. And I think when you hit that unexpected rock going downhill, maybe the hill's a little steeper, having the weight a little farther behind the axle, I think it makes it a safer bike to ride. Now, shorter stems make the steering a little quicker, but I have never had an issue with a bike being too twitchy, like head shake, like a motorcycle would get. Never had that problem on a mountain bike. And I ride, I think my chin over stem, get the weight on the front tire in the corners. I think I do that pretty naturally from all my years of motocross. So I really don't generally have too much of an issue getting enough weight on the front tire, even with a short stem. Now, that being said, I'm glad that I have a size large now that I got it fitting right, because I can run that shorter stem, which it does help it go downhill. And the other nice thing is the stock seat post on this is a 150, and it's just the YT Postman. I've had no problems with it. It doesn't come up the fastest on the market, but who cares? Like, it works. And the large comes with a 150, whereas the medium only comes with 125. And with this thing slammed, it fits me perfectly. So I'm getting an extra inch of drop, just because I'm on a large. And I do think it helps with some stability downhill. Now, another change I had to make were I actually got these for free from a guy that just didn't want them. These were brand new Descendant 7K alloy 170 mil cranks. The bike came with XO1 carbon 175s, which I have for sale. Just too long for me. That extra 5 millimeters with the post slammed, it was just too long of a crank. So I did add a little weight. I believe this is a Core 4 model, so it has XO1 drivetrain, it had the XO1 cranks, these DT Swiss XMC 1501 carbon wheels, 240 hubs. It's got the new Fox 34 with the curved arch, which is nice because it's stiffer than the old one. I think stock trim, it probably weighed about 175. I mean, not 170. That's dumb. 27.5. Probably stock trim, no pedals, probably 27.5 pounds. I've probably added a half pound of weight to the whole bike. I added, and no, it's not clear, so it covers up the logo. And I get it doesn't look that good, but this is a thin plastic stick-on down tube protector I got off Amazon just for those. There was no real down tube protection on this bike. And, you take a rock straight to here at high speed, even though I haven't heard of YT really having carbon issues, like, say, like the Stump Jumper Evo, there was tons of stories of people cracking right here, and that was even with a down tube protector. Haven't really heard, you don't find a lot of reliability issues with this bike online, but I still didn't trust it, so I added that protection there. So let's get into the big changes I really think make this bike a lot better. If you are someone who's really all about pure cross-country riding, but you just want a bike a little more capable, perfectly fine stock suspension setup. Now, for me, it's not that I want to abuse this bike, because I think if I find myself doing things and I'm bottoming out really hard and too much, then I don't need to be on this bike. I need to be on my Enduro. I think you need to respect the bike for what it's built for. But I did go up a size in the spacer that was in here. It comes with the 0.2. I went to a 0.4, and I think I'm going to stay there, even though I did have some good bottom outs yesterday riding just on some trails, but there were some sort of intermediate sized jumps. I'm not going to go up a spacer because this bike already feels very supportive, poppy, really great pedaling. And I think going up in the spacer the ramp up would be too much, and it might not make the bike good for its intended use, which is more cross-country riding. But there were some rocky sections, and I think too much ramp up, it would have started holding up where I'd be losing speed. And like I said, if the ramp up on this is not enough, it's still a 130 mil bike. It's never going to be a 170. And like I said, if that's not enough and you still want just one bike, maybe a Jeffsy would be a better choice in the YT family. Fork, it came with 2 tokens. At 130, it can take up to 5. I put 2 more in it, so it's at 4. I'm fine with that. I'm pretty happy with that. The great thing about this fork, I really didn't notice it yesterday, which I think is a very good compliment, is just I kind of forgot about it, which means it was doing everything it was supposed to do. I basically run the compression clickers, both low and high speed, almost dead center. When it's cold outside, I open them up to just 1 or 2 clicks from full open, because the oil's not gonna flow as well. Now, once I added the tokens, got it feeling good. I think it's fine. Maybe someday I'll add the 5th, but I don't think my fork it's pretty balanced with my shock when it comes to hard hits. And if I ramp up that fork more, it's actually going to just put more load onto the shock on some of those landings. And again, I'm a big believer in if I'm doing too much of that, I'm on the wrong bike. And I know people out there they're over forking these Jeffsies. They're putting on 140 and even 150 forks like Fox 36s, making it sort of their one to do it all bike. And I guess that's fine. But I bought this bike to cover miles, but still be capable. And I honestly, my biggest motivation of buying this over something like a stump jumper, over something like an Epic Evo was this is a bike I could still take to some flow trails with jumps. And I don't think I'm going to break this bike unless I do something really stupid. So compared to my Enduro, I mean, even with the setup and the extra weight I added, I'm probably still, I would say, at least 7 pounds lighter. And it has been great. You know, I did the Epic much faster than the year before on a Trek Slash. Other things about this bike, I originally was running the flip chip in the high steep setting for like the Epic, and I can say I do think there is a noticeable difference climbing if you have tight switchbacks with kind of some rocky ledges. Probably in the high setting is definitely the way to go if you care about climbing more, or if you just really don't want to have any pedal strikes or anything, you need to go high. I flipped it to low and tested it out for the first time yesterday, and I'll probably just keep it in low. Just need to time my pedals here and there a little better, but I do think it does make it feel more stable on the descents, and might get me out of trouble if I start making bad decisions just a little bit, and probably feels a little better jumping that way too. Now, other things on this bike, you know, the stock brakes are the G2s with a 200 mil rotor up front and a 180 rear. I don't understand. I read on Pink Bike and stuff, and people complain about those brakes, and the complaints usually aren't that the brakes like seize up or don't work. And these are the G2 RSC, so it has the extra adjuster. Sorry about that. Maybe that adjuster makes all the difference, but I think these brakes are fine. Like, I have no complaints about them whatsoever. Again, though, I'm not taking this bike to the bike park and riding really steep where I'm just prolonged brake drag, heating them up again for the probably fourth time. For that kind of riding, I'm going to use my Enduro. And you say, well, Clint, you know, you're lucky to have two bikes. I am. I'm very blessed. It's a dream for me to have a buddy bike extra for whoever might want to come along. But if I could only have one bike, this probably would not be it. I'd probably try to get something more well-rounded, like a Jeff C in the YT range, or I probably would just have an enduro bike and that's it, because you can put the miles in on an enduro bike. I'm fortunate enough, when I sold a bike, I put on some cheaper wheels and kept the carbon and sold it for a lower price. So I do have an extra wheel set I can put on an enduro bike with, you know, more cross-country tires and take a lot of rolling weight off. And I would just do that to have a one-bike quiver. But I think as good as the Izzo is as an all-rounder, it can be your one-bike quiver as long as you're not going to places like Shepherd Mountain, Windrock. Now, you can get down the hill at those places, right? Like, you can get down the hill on a hardtail. I have buddies who've done it. But if you want to thrive at those places, and you're going to go there enough that you want a bike that's going to perform, I don't think this is it. Now, it's a very fun bike, very supportive valving in the shock. And, you know, I weigh close to 190 pounds, and this bike climbs very well. The front end feels very light. But overall, if you are 5'9" or shorter, unless you are like me and you're like, I still want to skew this bike to perform downhill better, probably going to be better off on a medium. If you are, let's say, 5'11" plus, then large is the way to go, and you can kind of change that stem length if you need to. But once I got this bike fitting, and I know it fits because over 52 and a half miles in the cold, I had no back pain whatsoever, no knee pain. You can set it up for you. Just know that if you are even taller than 5'9", let's say I have a friend he says 5'11". I don't know what he really is, but his legs are like 2 inches shorter than me. I don't think he could run this dropper post, even slammed. I've been on his bikes. I don't think he could do it. So stem length wouldn't help him. He'd have to run a shorter dropper, even though he would prefer a size large for the top tube length and the reach. Understand that at least the YT Postman, the slamming of it, there's like a rubber grommet here. I don't know if we could take that out and slam it more, or if that's there to make sure you don't slam it too much, or if that's just to keep water out. But you know, slammed is slammed, so it's not even going to help you to go to like a 1-up. I think he someone like him would have to go to a 125 post. So keep that in mind. The curve here, your dropper is going to stop somewhere right in here as far as how far you can run it down. Unless this is just a really long post. I'm not 100% sure. I never took it all the way out, but if you are 5'9" or less, or even 5'10" or less, if you're thinking about getting one of these, you need to test ride it to make sure that it can fit you. Bone stock with a 60 mil stem, no way. 40 mil stem, it's good. And it feels really good descending. And it is just a fun bike. You can really play around with the trail, hop around. I don't suggest you go huck to flat a bunch of things, but for its intended use of a fun bike that doesn't feel sketchy, that you can cover tons of ground on in a very efficient manner with the shock wide open, this is a great bike to do it on. Thanks for watching, and let me know your experiences.